Welcome to Mastering Fundraising, a podcast for nonprofit leaders of all titles and all experience levels. Mastering fundraising endeavors to cover the most important fundraising topics with the goal of helping the audience reach their full potential as fundraisers. This podcast will share stories, tips, and guidance on the most important elements of fundraising. If you want to earn an advanced degree in fundraising, this is the podcast for you. Mastering Fundraising is a collaboration between Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership and the 5-Tool Fundraiser, two leaders in providing relevant and expert content to fundraisers and nonprofit leaders. Without further delay, let's jump into the current episode. Please join me in welcoming your host for today, Chris Looney.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Mastering Fundraising, the podcast dedicated to helping fundraising professionals, nonprofit leaders, and volunteers deepen their understanding of the art and science of philanthropy. Today's guest is Tianna Haradon, CFRE and Chief Development Officer at the Wooden Floor. And throughout her career, Tianna's progressed through multiple fundraising roles, each one providing new lessons, new challenges, and opportunities for growth. And her journey offers an excellent lens through which to explore how fundraising professionals evolve from executing fundraising activities to leading fundraising strategy and ultimately serving as organizational leaders. So today we'll discuss the evolution from transactional fundraising to transformational fundraising, what each stage of fundraising career could look like and teach us, the leadership lessons that prepare someone for executive responsibility, what aspiring fundraising leaders should focus on as they grow, and how the role of Chief Development Officer differs from what many people imagine. So, Tianna, welcome to Mastering Fundraising.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very
You bet.
honored.
Oh man, I am so excited for this conversation. You know why? Because I get to learn a lot of things that I didn't know, and so I think the audience is in for a real treat. So let's look first, though. Knowing that many people look at successful fundraising leaders and focus on where they ended up rather than how they got there, why don't you start from the beginning and tell
Mhm.
us about what first drew you into fundraising?
So, full transparency, I was terrified of fundraising. I still am a little bit. I just sort of fell into it, and it's not something I ever really thought I would want to do or be able to do. I grew up as a dancer, I read books, and so I'm the person behind the scenes. I've always been that person behind the scenes. And I just it just kind of happened. I My first role was within fundraising was a assistant position at Chapman University, and it was in the advancement department. And it was just one of those phone calls. I went to Chapman, and so a friend of mine that worked there called and said, "Hey, do you want to join the team? They need an assistant." And it's, the department that helps to raise funds for the Chapman Gala, which was something I was a part of as a student. So I was like, yes, I was thrilled to go back to work, and just kind of naturally progressed from there. The thought of asking someone for money made me want to cry. But then what I realized it as I kept progressing in my career at Chapman was that as I found myself in the center of it, it was all about the relationships and supporting a mission that you love and you care about. And that was easy. And so it just came naturally after that. I didn't really have to stress about it as much because it was something that I really believed in. So, you know, um, did something draw me to it? Not really. I kind of really just landed in it. But I love it. And I've been there for over 15 years now. So
That's amazing. And
yeah.
as you look back, were there some things that those early roles taught you that you still rely on today?
Definitely. There's so much. I think the biggest thing I learned was to listen, especially when I first started. I didn't know anything about fundraising at all. And so as I was a little bit more entrenched in every role, just listening, not only to the donors, but to my colleagues, supervisors. The lessons I learned haven't been in classes or the conferences or things like that. It's been in the day to day. It's what happens in those day-to-day conversations between donors and supervisors and colleagues who are discussing things. So I think that's really one of the biggest skills I learned that has really stayed with me throughout my entire career. I mean, there's always going to be the fundamentals you learn of just, the basics of fundraising. But I think that's the one that's really stayed with me because even now at the wooden floor, that's taught me everything, especially as I've worked with mentors and everything. I just sit and I listen and hear how it works for them and what I could do to improve on it or what would work for me. So that's probably been the biggest skill that I've carried with me.
Yeah, that's great. And did you always have your eye on leadership, or did that kind of develop over time? Did that goal just get placed in front of you? How did leadership manifest itself?
Yeah, I think it definitely developed over time. I never really saw myself in a leadership role, but what's funny is that when I look back on my career, there's so many roles where I have been in leadership positions and I just didn't really look at it. I never positioned myself that way. I was a coach, I was a dance coach, I was a teacher, I was all these things before I got into fundraising, and I never really thought about it until I looked back and I thought, well, yeah, I can do that. I've been doing it. It was in a different career path and a different part of my life. And so I think it's something that I naturally evolved into. Um, I've had the opportunity to work alongside some really, really great mentors and supervisors and colleagues and just friends within the community who have really made me want that for myself. I see their roles and I see how they've progressed in their careers, and it's something that I respect. And so it took me a while to get there, but I think by the time I got or excuse me, by the time I got to the wooden floor, um, I really wanted to move in that direction with my career. And they provided me the opportunity. So, it's evolved on its own.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting how you need to marry the capacity and skill with the opportunity
Definitely. Yeah.
in order to achieve some of those leadership goals that an individual might have.
Hmm.
It appears that it started with sort of transactional fundraising for
Hmm.
you, where like a lot of fundraisers, you begin in environments where success is measured through activity,
Hmm.
execution, and results. And when you think
Yeah.
about that kind of transactional fundraising, do you define it that way or in a different way?
Definitely. So when I think transactional fundraising, I think checklists. It's when I started my career really as a fundraiser. I was working at Chapman and I was basically working on all of the event sponsorships. So to me, it was all checklists. It was, have I called that donor to provide the benefits? Have I asked this person if they're interested in the next level sponsorship? Have I looked at the list for new potential underwriters for the event? That's how it worked in my mind. It was a to-do list, and every day it was just checking them off. Um, you know, I I never really thought, even though I was, of course, building relationships with the donors and the sponsors and underwriters, and there were obviously other supporters that I worked with, I never really thought of it as building relationships. I just thought of it as like, oh, this is so and so, and he supported the event for 5 years, and he's really great to the organization, and I'm just going to email him and see if he wants to raise that gift. So to me, it's very much a to-do list. It's just a checklist. And I know there is more to transactional fundraising, but in my mind, because that's how it always worked for me, that is what it is.
Yeah, well, and it gave you a certain discipline, I imagine,
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
is carried forward throughout your
Mhm.
career. Were there other skills that you gained during that time that you
Absolutely.
find you
Yeah.
still benefit from?
So task management is a big one. I think it um, really forced me to learn how to prioritize things, how to organize my work, how to execute responsibilities to, achieve my goals, to meet those deadlines that have been given to me. I really learned how to focus on the details because of all of that. So, attention to detail in every aspect of the fundraising world is important. So I think for me, that's task management is probably one of the biggest things that I still do today. I mean, in different ways. I'm not going down the checklist as much and I'm not, filing my to-dos, but I also think it's served as a really good foundation for developing other skills. It's really helped me when I needed to kind of step into that strategic planning mindset for larger roles. I was able to do that because I was able to prioritize, okay, I've already done all the day-to-day, all the emails and the phone calls. Now I can kind of step aside and look at the bigger picture and figure out what else I need to do. So it definitely laid the groundwork for everything.
Yeah, yeah. One of the struggles for people is having that professional patience. You see among many the desire to achieve that title, that responsibility as early as possible. You can't fault anyone for wanting those things and to want to see them happen as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But it also is probably true that you need to gain experience and exposure and develop some maturity in terms of your strategy and thinking and all of those things.
Hmm.
So, like, I'm just interested to understand or know your perspective on, what maybe younger fundraisers should be thinking about those early experiences and
Yeah.
how to maybe value them properly.
Yeah. I think so many young fundraisers underestimate the value of those lower level positions in fundraising. And not all of them are lower level. You can be, a high level just doing sponsorships, and it's still important. So many people think that they can skip those early steps and just jump into a major gift role or a leadership role. But I don't think they realize that those roles are what create the fundamentals. They give you the fundamentals that create the foundation for leadership roles. A major gifts role, any type of leadership role within an organization and within fundraising, you have to have those fundamentals. You have to know what those basics are. You have to know how to handle a sponsorship on top of a major gift ask. So, I think they're crucial. And I mean, I kind of did it backwards because I started at a university and then moved to a nonprofit, and apparently people do it the other way. I don't.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's no rule that says you have to do one
Yeah,
versus the other, right? Whatsoever. And I've
exactly.
seen extraordinary leaders come out of kind of both backgrounds and ending up in both types of
Absolutely. Yeah.
nonprofits. But like, let's get granular a minute there when you were talking about the experiences
Hmm.
that help, younger fundraisers, let's say, understand donors and organizational needs. Like, how did that come together for you, or what do you think of when you think of the experiences that provided the foundational building blocks
Hmm.
upon which you were then later able to kind of make more strategic and informed decisions?
Hmm. I think so many of those skills that we listed earlier in those kind of fundamentals, just attention to detail and, really listening. There were so many times where that's come into play where a donor might say something in passing, you're not really knowing that it's something important. And had I missed it, I wouldn't have realized that they had like completely overlooked a benefits package or, you know, how it's going to impact a program. Um, a lot of times it's in the opposite. Like a donor might say something, and then when you hear it and kind of play it back, you realize that's really not in line with our organization. It's not in line with our mission. It's not in line with our values. And so you might have to take a step back and say, well, that's a great idea and we're grateful, but unfortunately that doesn't work for our organization. And I feel like so many people are afraid to say that, but it's in those attention to details where you get the true aspect of what a donor wants and what a donor needs and what an organization needs. If it's not going to be in our best interest, we're not going to waste their time. But at the same time, if the donor is saying something that's fantastic and we can work with it, and maybe it's something that could work in line with our programs, you might have missed it if you were looking just at that big picture, the dollar at the end and not really listening to what they were saying. So I think so many of those tiny little details that you just learn and you grow with as you start from the bottom and rise up, it's just you learn to listen in different ways. When I started, I was listening to I want to do a $5,000 sponsorship. What are the benefits? And I'm listening to what they want to get out of it. And then as you progress, you're listening for those like, oh, I really love education. Well, great. We have a great education program. You can support that. You don't have to support the entire organization. You can just support scholarships if you want. So I think it's just really paying attention and how you use those skills that you've learned from the bottom and just develop them as you progress in your career.
That's perfect. And um, the experience that you gained as you were maneuvering, making your way up through the ranks, if
Mhm.
you will, of development, I'm sure you had exposure to events, as you said, you had
Mhm.
exposure to annual giving, to stewardship practices,
Yeah.
some direct response, then the metrics and accountability, and then pulling it all together. Were there particular areas that I mentioned or that I didn't that you found particularly valuable to the younger kind of self that you really would encourage younger fundraising professionals to learn and have
Mhm.
exposure to?
I think, and I'll probably say this about 10 more times as we talk. I just think that the way that I learned to develop relationships from the very beginning has helped me so much in how I've transitioned into my CDO role. I'm not an extrovert. I'm not a super outgoing person. So for me, working that transactional fundraising job in the beginning was a perfect introduction for me because I could handle it with an email and a phone call. I didn't have to be out there really networking and getting to know people, but I still got to know them in a way that was very comfortable for both of us. So, over the course of 5 years, I really developed some great relationships in my communication skills because of that. And I think that has helped me so much and evolved so much in my career. It's been the basis for, I really think, what's helped me get to where I am now is because so much of what I do now is relationship based. And that really started from the transactional fundraising, even though I didn't realize I was doing it. So I think that's
Perfect.
always going to be key.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then you did make that shift um, toward transformational
Mhm.
fundraising from transactional, and obviously a lot of fundraisers like you realize that this work is so much more than just the dollars raised.
Yeah.
When did your perspective begin to shift around the importance of transformational fundraising?
I think when I joined the wooden floor and I really dove into it, when I joined, we were in the middle, or we had just started a comprehensive campaign. I jumped in, I think like a year into it, and they were already knee deep. And I came from transactional, I came from event sponsorship, and immediately the whole team pulled me into every conversation, which was fantastic. And so for me, that's when I really transitioned into that mindset of, oh, I'm not just looking at a checklist. You don't want me to just, email someone about some information. It was, hey, do you know this person? Or do you know how we can like get in touch with them? And what are their interests? And how can we, connect them to the organization? Do you think our missions align? And just being in the room with the teams and hearing them talk about how they're going to approach supporters and how we're approaching the campaign, it was so interesting and so informational for me. It was like those aha moments where it was like, not in every meeting that I went to, there wasn't a single mention of like, oh, we're going to ask them for this much. It was always like, how are we going to, what are their interests? Are they on the dance side? Are they on the education side? Are they on the family
Right.
service side? How do we want to connect with them? And that's when I was just like, oh my God, we're going to connect with them. We're going to like just really get to know them. And that just changed everything for me. I mean, just understanding how transformational is just, it's partnerships, it's relationships, it's, you know, wanting them to be a partner with the organization and not just for the dollars, but because they love the mission and they want to be an advocate for us. So that really changed my mindset about fundraising in general. So,
Yeah, ideal. It's so great. Um, so in your mind, knowing so well the transactional side,
mhm.
how do you define transformational fundraising? How is it different?
So for me, transformational is really about building those long-term relationships and partnerships, like I said. It's fundraising that's focused on a shared vision, um, turning our supporters, our constituents into advocates for the organization. I want them to go out there and talk about how much they love us and how much they love our mission and connect to our mission. And it's not easy. It's not going to be a one email or one phone call. It's relationships that develop over years, maybe months if you're lucky. But I mean, we've had some, and I know you know some of our stories, but I mean, we have some supporters we've been talking to since I've been here, so close to 10 years, and we're just now signing proposals for a major gift. But that's fantastic. That's what we want. We want that commitment. We want them to be in it for the long haul with us. So transformational is about the partnership. It's not a one-time email. It's not a, hey, thanks, we'll send you a thank you note at the end of the year. It's a, hey, thank you so much. We're going to keep you in our loop forever until you tell us you don't want to be in it anymore. So yeah,
Right,
it's
right,
the long
right.
term.
And I suppose also over that time, trying in earnest to build the strongest possible
Hmm.
relationship, but connection to the mission as well, giving
Yeah.
them the true richness of the kind of mission experience and
Hmm.
showing them truly what life changes you're able to make at the
Yeah.
organization as well, right? So making them almost feel like they're a part of the family.
Absolutely. Yeah. We work really hard to make sure that all of our supporters are connected, whether they're giving us a dollar or whether they're a major gift supporter over their lifetime. We steward them in a way that to me is very conversational. We don't email them very formally. We really reach out and it's just a, hey, we just want to check in. Here's what's going on with our students. Here's how your support is making an impact every day. And we do it regularly. It's not, every time they make a gift. It's at least quarterly, if not more so. And it's with donors of every level, every giving level. And I really think that um, is what makes a difference. And not only our gifts, we are very much a major gift organization, and I think that is entirely because of how we steward our supporters. But it makes a difference in how we run the organization and how our donors communicate with us. Everything is on a friendship basis. I mean, and we're not actually best friends with them, but we feel like we are because we've known them for so long and we talk to them in a way that they feel so connected. They don't just talk to one person in the organization. They don't just know me or Don, the CEO, or Renette or Nancy. They know every single one of us. And we do that on purpose. We want them we give them that layering effect because we want them to feel connected to everybody in the organization. When we go and give updates in our year-round staff meetings, it's not it's not a new story to anybody in the organization. They're not going to say, wait, who's that donor? They know who they are because we've been talking about them forever. We talk to our donors about, Kimberly, who runs student support services. They know who Kimberly is. Do they talk to her every month like we do? No, but they know who she is because we talk about our staff and we talk about our organization like they're our family. And so they feel very connected to us in a way that is not transactional. So,
Yeah. Um, it's interesting because I really would like to know what you've learned about donor motivations, or how your thinking about donor motivations has
mhm.
evolved over time, especially as you've moved from the transactional to the transformational. And are there any takeaways that kind of you really take to heart now as this kind of fundraiser and development professional that's focused on the transformational?
Yeah. I think it's really about understanding what their reason for giving is. What's their motivation? Do you know their story? Why are they giving him? Why did they give that first time gift? Did you ask? Was it just because they saw something about the organization? Did they go to an event? Do they know somebody here? What was the reason for that first time gift? And I think if you understand the reason for giving, you can connect them to the organization in a way that is special to them. It might be a legacy gift. It might be they are the granddaughter of someone who's been supporting you for generations and they remember you. And so they want to continue that support. And that's fantastic. So now you have to connect with them and find out, well, that's great. We love that your grandfather supported us. But let us tell you more because we think there might be a reason that you love us too. So it's really getting to know them and what are their passions and do they align with our mission? And, let me introduce you to every aspect of the organization so I can see what really interests you. I don't want you to make a gift to dance if it's not what you love. But if you love family services and all the work we're doing, then let me tell you all about those programs because that's what's going to make a difference to them. So it's just listening, getting to know them, really diving in and doing your
Yeah.
research. Where have they given before? Maybe that's
Mhm.
something that connects you guys. So
Yeah. Yeah. Identifying the drivers, what
absolutely.
those interests and goals are for the donor is not something that you know without their relationship, without
Mhm.
asking lots of questions, listening, being interested, and really understanding what the philanthropic priorities are is such a foreign concept to someone that's working in the transactional side. They're just like,
Absolutely.
this is a no-brainer. It's something that probably aligns with what your interests are. You don't even really have to think about it. Just make that $100 gift and move on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Versus here, where you're talking about 100,000, a million,
Hmm.
10 million, whatever the number is, there's a lot more depth that goes into the decision and the preparation for the ask, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
alignment has to be so
Mhm.
strong on both sides.
What's
Uh,
interesting too is that the more that you connect with that donor and understand their drivers and why they support you, the less you have to ask. We just had a supporter who has been a very, very long time supporter, he and his wife, and they're fantastic and just the sweetest couple. And they reached out and said, hey, and this was after we had sent just like some reports on how we were doing and, the impact of their gift. And they said, we just want to do a little bit more. And we said, okay. And we didn't really know what that meant. And we weren't expecting anything crazy. And then we got a gift for $1 million. And it's not something you see every day, but it's knowing their drivers, it's knowing how to stay connected and knowing how their support makes a difference and making sure they know how their support makes a difference. It's so crucial in the fundraising process.
mhm. Yep. Amen to that.
Yeah.
Um, as we kind of look now at becoming a leader,
Mhm.
our next segment of the conversation, I know that being a great fundraiser and being a great fundraising leader are not the same thing.
Mhm.
There are often characteristics that don't align, that don't sort of allow someone who is a high producing fundraiser become a successful leader of fundraisers or
Yeah.
of a department. And like I'd love to know when leadership became a part of your professional identity. When was that? What did it look like?
So I have definitely worked my way up here at the wooden floor. I started as a manager, and then about 2.5 years into it, I was promoted to director of annual giving. So that was my first. And along every step of the way, I've had those conversations with my supervisor of, hey, we think you're ready for the next step. And at first, the next step was director of development, and I pulled back and I said, I don't think I'm there yet. And she said, okay, how about director of annual giving? That's kind of what you're overseeing right now. And I said, that's great. And it was still a little bit of the transactional and a little bit of the transformational. It was the first time I was really bringing the two together. It was also the first time I was going to be managing a team. And so that really scared me. In my work at Chapman, I'd overseen student workers, but I never really had like professional team. And so I was a little nervous, and it didn't help that one of the team members wasn't thrilled with my promotion.
Right,
And
which is often the case.
exactly. And, to be fair, she was justified in her nerves. She went to the supervisor and said, I don't think she's ready for it. I don't think she can lead our team. And so, we all kind of worked it out. And I think my biggest step that I've ever done that I was really proud of, and I just went to her and I said, listen, I'm new at this too. We're learning together. I'm gonna mess up. It's gonna happen. I'm human. I've never done this, but just tell me. I want you to be honest. You can hurt my feelings. Let's be transparent with each other. And if you want to be managed in a certain way, you need to tell me that because I'm not going to know. And if you think I'm doing something that is great or not so great, I need to know that. I'm never going to grow in my career if I'm not learning with you. So that was my first step into an actual leadership role, and it was terrifying. Um, but I think, the fact that I was really honest with not only my supervisor in saying, hey, I'm ready, but I don't want to go like head first, And then with my team, just saying, you got to work with me. And I was only in that role for not even 2 years before I was promoted to director of development. And by the time I got there, I felt ready. I was like, okay, I'm good to go. I know how to lead my team. I have a great team of leadership around me who not only supported me, but who I'm learning from. They all manage teams, some much bigger than mine. Our director of student services has a team of about 15 people. So I look at her all the time to see how she manages things. But that was really my first step into leadership, and leadership in a fundraising role where it wasn't just, I need you to get your dollars raised. It was more of how can I support you to get your dollars raised? How can I help you get there? And that's really when I made that transition of, kind of understanding that it's not just about how they're going to get the dollar and it's about how I'm going to help them get the dollars in. So
Mhm.
it
Was
was,
that the most difficult lesson that
I think
you
it
had to
really was.
learn? Yeah,
Um, I don't know if it was the most difficult lesson. I think it was the most eye-opening lesson was especially, when someone wasn't ready for me to be their supervisor, it
yeah,
hurts a little bit. You're like, well, I'm a
sure.
great person, but I also understood that I wasn't a great leader yet. Um, and I think the hardest thing that I learned was that failure is going to happen no matter what. But really, it's how are you going to move forward? How are you going to learn from it? Um, and I did. I had plenty of times where, I sent the wrong information, or maybe snapped at a colleague when I shouldn't have, or stress gets to you, and you just get a little crazy. But failure is going to happen. And how you own it and how you move from it, I think, is the most challenging thing I've dealt with as I've progressed in my career. And I think as a leader, it's how you deal with it shows your leadership. So,
Yeah, yeah, I get that. That is perfect. And what would you say are the most important skills that you found were important or increasingly important as your responsibilities in leadership grew?
communication top, and just full transparency, and accountability. I work really, really hard, especially now that I oversee a team of just always being clear in my communication. Um, and sometimes I'm maybe too clear. Sometimes maybe a little too blunt, which I acknowledge. And I come back and I say, hey, I'm sorry, that came out wrong, but here's what I needed to say. But communication is just crucial. It's making sure that everybody understands where we're at, that we're all on the same page. And I've learned that from the very bottom moving forward, that that's the one thing that has to stay constant. And it's why I think I have such a great relationship with all of our leadership team, with Dawn, our CEO. We are brutally honest with each other sometimes, but it's how our relationship works. It's how we do so well together. It's how we do so well as an organization. Every single leader in this organization knows where we're at. We know what that person's doing this week, and we know where they stand in this discussion. And I think that's crucial to how we move forward, especially with fundraising. If you are not clear in your communications, it's going to backfire on you. And the donors might say, "Oh, well, I thought you meant this." Well, that can lead to a whole mess of things. So, just how you own it, but then also, are you accountable for that? We had a situation, not really a situation, but a mess up probably 5 or 6 years ago where director of communications and I thought we heard two different things. I thought it was this date that things were going to go out. She thought it was
Yep.
this date that things were going to go out. We both, neither one of us checked in with each other to see like, and then we both got pulled into the office and said, "Hey, what happened?" And we both owned it. And we were like, you know what? We both messed up. We should have clarified with each other, and we didn't. And that was on us. And it
Mhm.
wasn't a huge issue, but it was something that set us back a few weeks. And, and that was the biggest moment where I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm going to be clear in everything. And now we have regular meetings and now we're on the same page for everything. And it's made working together that much better and that much easier. So I think just communication and accountability is just crucial.
And that example has elements of both.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
need for strong communication and the need
Mhm.
for good communication. Um, have you changed the way that you think about success as you've moved into leadership?
Definitely. I mean, success is always going to be if I hit my goal at the end of the year.
Yeah, you're a
But now
fundraiser, right?
exactly, it's still the number one, but I don't just look at that. I look at my team, I look at the organization. Um, when my team member gets a great email back or a great response from a note she wrote to a donor, that's success for me. That means she's building that relationship. She's doing what she's supposed to do. When our development coordinator does a fantastic development audit with no issues and everything comes back glowing, that's success to me. It's in how our team works, it's in how we support the organization. And all of that leads to us meeting our goal at the end of the year. So it's changed in the way that it used to only be the dollar amount for me. Success for me was, did I hit my goal? Did I make the phone calls I was supposed to make? And since I joined the wooden floor and really learned and grew into that transformational role, it's just evolved into so much more. It's not just about the dollars, it's about how it impacts our organization. How are we communicating that to the donors? Do the donors feel connected to us? That's success to me. Do they understand our mission? Could they tell somebody what it is? That's success. If they don't just say we're a dance studio, I'm thrilled. If they actually know what we do, it's like I won the lottery. So it's so different in so many ways now.
Yeah, that is great. Well, what are the experiences that you think best prepared you for eventually becoming that chief development officer?
Oh, I think spending time with mentors and other leaders within the community was so important for me. When I first decided that moving into a role like this was something that I wanted to work for, I reached out to not only my supervisor, who is our CEO and very much a mentor to me, but I reached out to other people that I'd worked with. People that I sit on boards with who were in these roles or who were also striving to get to these roles and just started going to coffee and having Zoom calls and having conversations, getting advice, as well as guidance, because we all had different paths. We're all in different areas of our careers. Some got there different ways. So hearing all of their experiences on how they got there, what they did to get there, the conversations they had, the issues they had, that helped me so much. And especially with our former CDO Keegan and then our boss Don, I met with both of them regularly and just said, "Hey, I need to know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, and how am I going to get there?" And one of my favorite conversations with Keegan because he said, "I can't tell you how to get there because it's totally different than how I got there." He said, "My working relationship with Dawn is completely different than yours and how you're going to build your relationship with hers." So he said, "I can guide you and I can help you and I can talk to you when you're having issues." He said, "But your path is yours and you need to create it." And that was one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got because he was right. I mean, I looked at his relationship as a CDO and CEO with Dawn and I respected it so much. But I value mine with Dawn just as much, if not more, because it's completely different, but it works just as well. So he was really right. I had to really look at our relationship and how we work together and how she helped me. I was really honest when I told her I wanted to be a CDO and said, I want to get there, but I know I'm not strong in these areas. And she was fantastic and said, okay, let's get you there. She got me an executive coach. Took a couple classes on grants and things that I didn't feel 100%, in.
Wow. Yeah.
And she really helped me hone in on those skills that I didn't feel like I was ready to oversee as a CDO. So I think just really meeting with people, having mentors in the field is going to help you so much more than, reading a book or watching a webinar.
Yeah, well, what strikes me is that those very concrete examples that you just shared um, were important to you, yes, but they also modeled for you how you can be a leader yourself
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
help those that
hmm
you are trying to have be successful in their
hmm
very specific roles as well. So
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
a double win, in
hmm
some ways, and kudos to Dawn for that approach that
hmm
helped you, but then helped you immediately, but then helped you longer term be a better manager. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that chief development officer role, what surprised you most when you got that title?
Honestly, I think what surprised me most is how much I was already doing and I didn't realize it.
Okay,
Um,
good, good, good.
I I think when it comes to like the day to day, we didn't have a CDO in place for a while, and so as a director of development, I had very much taken on
All right.
a lot of both roles. But not really realizing that, I kind of looked at it and thought, oh, I'm doing like the the transactional part of the CDO role along with my role. I kind of felt like that's what I had taken on. And then when I really sat down with Dawn and like went over like, okay, here's really what you're going to be doing, and here's and and we both kind of looked at it, and she said, you're doing all this already. And I was like, yeah, I kind of am. It was just, you don't realize it when you're in the day to day. I think for me, the biggest surprise was how comfortable I felt in that leadership role. And I really think that's because I had so much guidance and preparation in getting there. I didn't step into that role and go, oh gosh, like here we go. I really just, it was a very natural progression in the way that I worked with Dawn to get me into that role. Um, and so it felt comfortable. It felt like I can do this, I got it. I'm gonna handle it. It's still challenging, of course, but I think because I did so much of the work beforehand and then I worked so closely with our leadership, um, there weren't a lot of surprises. So I guess more just that I was good at it when I first started it. I didn't expect to be,
Well,
I
you,
expected to hit a
you
lot of bumps and I only hit a few, so that was kind of exciting for me.
right. Well, part of it is that you had developed the experiences from your
Yes.
foundational positions, and so
hmm
you had an understanding of how everything worked, not only um, fundamentally from a best practice standpoint, being, in the fundraising field, so you weren't new to that, but
Yeah.
also you had been with the organization a couple of years
Yes. Yeah.
and knew the organization as well. And so many people kind of fly into the chief
Yes.
development officer role not
Not knowing.
knowing
Yeah.
the organization or the people, and sometimes not really having the experience or expertise. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I
there
really
is.
had the support of our leadership team as I moved in my career. And that meant the world because it knew that if I had questions about leadership, about how I was managing my team, I could go to them. And so that was really a big, um, a big confidence booster for me as well, just knowing that they had my back.
Mhm. And I know that every CDO has a slightly different kind of pattern and expectations and roles and
hmm
responsibilities and all that stuff. But generally speaking, how do you allocate your time? What do you spend the most time doing? What do you spend the least time doing? And where do
hmm
you wish you had more time to spend?
Most of my time is stewardship and research.
Okay.
So I'm regularly talking to donors, um, doing research on, moving some donors up the pipeline, maybe some that could be a major gift supporter and we hadn't really looked at them yet. We're still knee deep in an endowment campaign, and so I'm always working on that. So primarily my time is in the stewardship and the research side of it, um, and supporting Dawn. So I support her quite a bit when it comes to board members and things like that. So that's a big part of my role. I honestly the the part that I'm doing the least is asking people for money, because I'm talking to them, which is kind of surprising when you say it out
Y-
loud.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah,
But we all
being
understand that those conversations, the stewardship conversations, create opportunities that then don't even
exactly.
require that you specifically put a number out there, right?
Exactly, yeah. And what's funny is that Dawn and I kind of talked about this not too long ago is, we really just, a big goal for both of us this year was to connect more with our Legacy Society members, and just talk to them. We don't see them a lot, and so it was
Yeah.
just one of those, let's connect. And we went to lunch with one of them about a month ago, and it was so great. And we hadn't seen her in a long time, and just had a great conversation. And then at the end of it, she said, you guys are in my will, you're in my estate plans. And we said, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. And she said, yeah, it's all going to you. And then she gave us a rough estimate of what it was. And we were like, whoa, okay. And it's those conversations that, people come back and they're like, how do you ask for that? And we're like, we didn't ask.
Right.
That's the thing,
Right.
it's my time and effort goes into just talking to her and seeing how her life is going. And that's what comes out of it. So I think it's surprising that I don't ask that much, but I'm
Yeah,
doing the
sometimes
work
it is.
that goes into it. So,
That's
I
right.
don't
That's right.
know.
Well, I know some people are going to judge that statement and say, just imagine how much more could be raised if you were being more intentional about the asks and scheduling those out. And yeah, it's easy to talk that way.
Yeah,
Um, but it's also easier to have the relationship be so strong that they know that you know that they're going to give,
mhm.
they know they're going to give when the moment's right, when the project's right, and
Absolutely.
and they'll
Yeah,
give again and again and again.
absolutely. And that's a different type of fundraising to me. If I really want to put in the work and make that ask, I'm going to get that ask. I'm going to get the $25,000 for the event coming up. And that's from a supporter. That's a longtime supporter. And I'm still going to make that ask, but it's a different kind of ask. It's, hey, you're a longtime supporter and you support the organization in so many other ways, but we know you also love this event. And so I'm going to take it back to my transactional for a hot second, but I'm using the relationship that I built for my transformational. So I do both. I'm putting in
Yeah,
the work and I'm making those asks, but I'm also building the long-term relationships so that I don't have to make the ask. So, you
yeah.
know,
Well, I was just heartened to hear that you're not spending the majority of your time on personnel issues,
no.
which
Yeah.
does which which is a challenge, a reality, a complication for so many leaders in the fundraising field, just
Yeah.
constantly feeling under pressure to hire for vacancies, to let go
Hmm.
dead weight, to confront problematic
Hmm.
staff, all kinds of things that totally take your eye off the ball.
Yeah. We are, I love where I work so much. And I know that everybody that works here feels the same way. And I think we're so fortunate in that because there are so many organizations, like you said, that have personnel problems. And we have them every once in a while, they come up. But for the most part, I'm so fortunate to work at an organization that really values its employees. I have a small team and we work really well together and we work very closely. And all of our teams are like that here. We all work so well together. We also have a really high retention rate, which makes a really big difference when it comes to your day-to-day job because you're not hiring new people for the full-time staff every 6 months. I've been here 10 years. Our CEO has been here, gosh, I think 16 or 17. Everybody here has been here and they plan on staying here. And that makes such a big difference when you're having to deal with personnel issues because we don't have those because we work so hard to keep people here and make sure they love working here. So,
Awesome. Okay,
yeah.
so two more quick questions.
Okay.
Um, First, what do CEOs need most from their fundraising leaders?
What do CEOs need most?
Yeah, what does Dawn need most from you?
I think she needs communication and transparency. I think she needs managing up. I think she needs me to keep her in the know, but not in the weeds.
Okay.
And so I make sure she knows what's going on. I make sure she knows what's important, but I make sure she knows that she doesn't need to be in the day-to-day of everything else. We have a great team for that. And if something comes up, then I pull her in and I say, okay, we're having an issue. But she won't be surprised by it because it'll be something that I've maybe brought up a couple times before, just as a, hey, just so you know. Um, but I think she just needs me to make sure she's in the loop at all times, and that I'm handling the job. If I need
Yeah.
her to make a call, then I'll ask her. But she also knows that I won't ask her until I need it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Probably the thing that she needs to know is that you know how to do your job and she doesn't need to babysit, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, that's
and
such
she
an
knows
important
it.
thing.
Yeah, she
Yes.
won't she
It's
won't
good.
micromanage at all.
Yeah. No, but I know you have a beautiful, connected, dynamic relationship that supports fundraising. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's worth exploring
Hmm.
a podcast for another day. But last question. Okay,
Yes.
so for someone listening today who hopes to become a CDO, what should they be doing right now to prepare themselves?
Start meeting with people. Get yourself a mentor. Meet with others in the community. Go to, local AFP meetings or, 1OC meetings or, something within your area that can help you. The biggest difference in me moving into my role was my mentors and the people that I talked to about how to get here. They made the biggest impact on me. And it was because they all had different stories and they all had different advice, but it all made a difference on me. And I saw how they led and I saw how they did their jobs, and that impacted how I do my job every day. So I say get out there, meet some people and talk to them and call me. I'll meet you for coffee. If not, I know some great people that you can meet with that are just really, really good at giving advice and, giving you the information you need to get you where you want to go.
Mm. Well, thank you, Tiana. This has been a really awesome conversation, so instructive, informative, especially for those out there that are aspiring chief development officers. Your journey really illustrates that every fundraising role has value, that the skills you learn in transactional fundraising create the foundation for transformational fundraising, and the lessons learned through fundraising leadership prepare individuals for executive leadership
Mhm.
and ultimately to be a successful chief development officer, understanding both the mechanics of fundraising and the deeper purpose behind philanthropy. So I just wanted to thank you for being such a strong voice out there for those fundraisers that really want to know how to achieve that top kind of role in fundraising. And I wanted to thank all of our listeners for joining us for another episode of Mastering Fundraising. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like and subscribe and share the episode with a colleague. And just encourage you to continue investing in your own growth as a fundraising professional. And until next time, keep mastering the art and science of fundraising. Thanks all.
Thank you for joining this episode of Mastering Fundraising. We hope the conversation was helpful and invite you to like and subscribe to this podcast for more conversations with extraordinary nonprofit and fundraising leaders. To learn more about Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership, please visit us on the web at fulcrumleader.com. To learn more about the 5-Tool Fundraiser, please visit us at 5toolfundraiser.com. We want to hear from you. Please share your thoughts and ideas with us at hello@fulcrumleader.com. Thank you for the important work you do to make our world stronger. We look forward to welcoming you back during a future podcast. In the meantime, take care and be well.